Oh, just FYI, I got the t-shirt. I like the t-shirt. I think it's pretty cool. I like the design. They've even got like the Cursed Child logo there too. That's pretty cool. Everything about this play from like a visual standpoint, even from the marketing, is really great. So, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. The script's a mess. We all know it's a mess. We've all read it. We're all just like, what the hell is going on? But still, at the end of the day, I would say that Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, after having seen the play, part one is not that bad and would actually make a decent film, providing that they altered the script heavily, so they added in more context and backstory, and so the dialogue is not written in such a cliche and cringy and weird way. I mean, like, everybody in the script talks in weird platitudes and metaphors, but in this hypothetical situation, the screenwriter and or director, who will eventually and inevitably helm the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child movies, because it will happen one day. I know Daniel Radcliffe just came out recently and said, no, I really have no interest in doing Cursed Child for a while. Like, at least give me, like, 10 more years or something like that. Which is perfectly reasonable for him to say, since, he's only had 10 years away, and Harry is supposed to be, like, 40 or something in The Cursed Child. And so I'm guessing, in, like, another 10, 15 years down the line, the original trio will come back, and they will do somewhat of an adaptation of Cursed Child, I think. Or at least they'll do a Harry Potter 9, maybe a Harry Potter 10. I don't know. But either way, they will make Cursed Child in the future. But still, I digress. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the play, part 1 is decent. I was watching it. I was like, yeah, there's stuff I don't like. But seeing it as a whole, seeing it performed, I wouldn't mind seeing this as a movie. I mean, there are points where it does feel like, oh, yep, we're doing the cliche Harry Potter thing of, oh, we're gonna break into the Ministry, and then we're gonna go and grab a time turner, we're gonna go back in time, we're gonna revisit the Triwizard Tournament. It does, in a way, feel like, oh, we're reliving the highlights of the Harry Potter saga, but part 1, as a whole, would be entertaining as a film. Part 2, on the other hand, oh god, part 2 is awful. It's really bad. Cursed Child Part 2, if you read the screenplay, you know it's bad. But seeing it performed in context, the first part feels like a decent play. Part 2, on the other hand, though, is a mess. It is really bad. Like, specifically after watching it after part 1, because I saw both parts in one day, part 1 ends, and you're like, okay, that's a good cliffhanger. And then you jump into part 2, and it's just... The dialogue is bad, there are so many contrivances, there are so many inconsistencies with the Harry Potter canon, it just doesn't work. Specifically the character of Delphi, who is, spoiler alert, the bad guy. Shocking, I know, but just... When Delphi, fully emerges as the Augury, who is, like, the daughter of Voldemort or whatever, it doesn't work. The stage play in itself suddenly becomes a pantomime because they get the actress playing Delphi on wires and she's like hovering around. She's like,
I am the Augury and you're going to die, Harry Potter.
And it's like, this sucks. This does not work. This is bad. Someone needs to get the script and rewrite it so that they can make these actors look better on stage because... That being said, though, the stagecraft and the production of the two parts put together is amazing. Like, on stage, they do real-life magic, so they cast full-on sparks. There is really great illusions and tricks done on stage. A great example of this is how they portray the Polyjuice Potion on stage. It's so cool. Like, they'll have, like, the child actor, drinking the Polyjuice Potion, and all of a sudden their body starts to morph, and then, like, they will slip through the robes, and then out pops the actual actor for, say... when Scorpius turns into Harry, for example, the actor playing Harry will just appear through Scorpius's... It's really cool. It's great stuff. Another example of this is when Scorpius and Albus go back in time and they end up in the lake task in Goblet of Fire. And the way they portrayed the swimming on stage is so cool because they have them up on wires and they're all just, like, floating about. And it's really cool to look at. And then they'll disappear off stage for a minute and they'll let the score and the lighting take over. And then there's a little trapdoor underneath the stage that opens, and they just appear in this little pool on stage, and it's really cool. It's really good stuff. Although I think the writing for the Cursed Child play is bad, I think it's worth the price of admission, providing you can get tickets that, are within, your price range, because they are really expensive for both parts on the same day. I would highly recommend watching this just for an overall experience perspective because it's amazing. And regarding the performances, most of them were really great. I mean, the standouts for me were Scorpius, Ron, and Albus. They really shone. Like, those actors were great in their roles, and they really carried a presence on the stage. Shout out to Thomas Aldridge, who played Ron. Shout out to Dominic Short, who played Albus Potter, and Luke Sumner, who played Scorpius Malfoy. You guys were great. Now, getting on to the main man himself, Jamie Ballard as Harry Potter. What a fucking performance. And what I mean by that was he was all over the place, and the way he portrayed Harry in this was so bizarre. I mean, Harry in the play itself is not written very well. He's an asshole and he's a terrible father, and he acts so like pompous and arrogant and stupid. And I'm like, this isn't the Harry Potter I know and love. Who is this guy? But the way Jamie Ballard plays it, like, oh my god. Like, he puts on this voice for Harry for one, where, "This is Harry Potter, I am the boy who live. This is going to be a great day, Albus. First day back at Hogwarts." And it's like, what is he doing? I remember sitting in the audience, people around me just being like, what is he doing? Like, is he acting or is he just taking the piss? Like what? And it got even more comical in part 2. Like, in part 1, he was doing the Harry Potter voice and people were just like, that's a bit weird. But in part 1, he's normal, okay? He's okay. Like, although he's putting on the voice, I was like, yeah, he's a good actor. And then you get to part 2, and oh my god, he has, like, a mental breakdown on stage, I think. I don't know. I saw this on New Year's Day, and my hypothesis as to why his performance was so bizarre and weird was that he went on a bender the night before, and he woke up on the day he was performing, and he was hungover, and so he was just, like, going crazy in the second part. Like, there's this bit where he has a confrontation with the portrait of Dumbledore, and it seems like Jamie forgets his line at one point, and he's just like, "I love you, Dumbledore!" And it was the most, like, over-the-top thing ever. It was hilarious. Me and my older sister, I turned to her, and she was just like, is he going crazy? Is he having, like, a therapy, like, session on stage or something? Because, like, it seemed like he was having a breakdown with just how much he was, like, putting emphasis on, like, all these emotional beats, and it's like, is he okay? Like, is this good drama or is this, like, a comedy or something? Like, what's going on? And honestly, I'm no expert on acting or anything, but I know that when it comes to drama and acting, every actor has an emotional beat, has a moment they have to hit and perform. But it just seemed like, to me, Jamie Ballard misread, like, every reading of Harry in the play. Every emotional moment was the wrong emotional moment. A moment where Harry is supposed to be angry, he was, like, screaming. Like, like a quiet rage. He was just screaming it. And look, this is no personal attack towards Jamie Ballard. Jamie Ballard, for all I know, is an amazing guy. And he seems like he is a good actor. I could tell he was a good actor. He was just either miscast or just didn't have a good day on stage, but just, it didn't work. It was bizarre, and there's a specific moment in the play where basically they time travel back to the night Lily and James Potter die, and Harry essentially stands and watches his parents die from outside the house, and the way Jamie performs it is the most over-the-top pantomime thing ever. He's just like, ah! Ah! It was so funny. Like, I'm sorry, I try not to laugh even when an actor's performing on stage. If it's not a comedy, like, I will not laugh because it's obviously a respectful thing to not laugh at the actor, but just, I was laughing in my seat. It was hilarious. Oh my god, this play is so messy. Just, again, I just want to stress, no shade towards Jamie Ballard. Like, he seems like a really good guy and a good actor. It's just what he was doing in The Cursed Child just didn't work for me. But those are my thoughts on The Cursed Child as an overall theatrical experience. I think it's a really cool thing to experience. Sit down in a theatre for a couple of hours, watch, experience. The magic they do on stage is awesome. There's really cool puppetry too. Like, there is a moment where the Dementors, like, pop out of the ground and they start flying around the theatre. It's really immersive and really exciting, and it's a really cool theatrical experience. But at the end of the day, if you don't like The Cursed Child script, you won't like the play that much. But then again, the absolutely radical and insane performance of Jamie Ballard might be enough to save your sanity and make you look past the errors of the script and just go, this is so batshit insane, I love it, this is hilarious. But when it comes to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child as a film, could it work? And my answer to that would be possibly. You just have to heavily adapt the story. And I don't think I would stick to a 2-part film of doing Cursed Child Part 1 as a film and Cursed Child Part 2 as a film. I might even make it a trilogy, because another problem with the Cursed Child script is that it acts like a sequel to the Deathly Hallows, but it also doesn't act like a sequel to the Deathly Hallows because it doesn't really address what happened in the span between Deathly Hallows and the Cursed Child, where we start off the play. It's just kind of like they reference offhanded things, but there's not a lot of actual references of substance, like what happened to the wizarding world after the Battle of Hogwarts, what happened to Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, the kids, Neville. Like, Neville is only referenced once in line, and that's it. Like, Hagrid doesn't even make an appearance in the present day. Hagrid's only appearance in the play is all in flashbacks, and that's just weird because you'd think Harry would still be inviting Hagrid round for dinner every so often, but it's never mentioned. And honestly, I think you kind of need 3 films to sort of delve into what happened to the trio after Hogwarts. But also, you can then adapt Cursed Child Parts 1 and Part 2 as the second and third film of the trilogy. Film 1 would be what happened to the trio after Hogwarts. How did Harry become head of the magical law enforcement? How did Hermione become the Minister for Magic? How did Ron join the magical law enforcement and then leave the magical law enforcement to then go help out George in Weasley's Wizard Wheezes? Because, I mean, in The Cursed Child, Ron is co-running Weasley Wizard Wheezes because obviously Fred died in Deathly Hallows, but that's kind of it. Like, they don't address the fact that Ron was also an Auror once upon a time. Like, J.K. Rowling said that in her, like, unofficial released, materials of the sequel canon of what happens to the trio after Deathly Hallows, like on Pottermore. But they don't address that in Cursed Child. It's just Ron runs the joke shop and is, again, kind of useless. But not only that, that first film could also have an establishment of there's a new Dark Wizard threat rising, maybe seeding the idea of Delphi and the augury, so then it doesn't just randomly appear in Cursed Child. We see Harry raising his kids, we see James, because, I mean, James is an afterthought in Cursed Child. He's, like, the older brother who has, like, maybe, like, 10 lines in total, and, like, sporadically appears throughout the play, but that's it. Like, I want to see Harry raising his, 5-year-old son, James, and, seeing Albus the baby being a very difficult toddler or something. That could be interesting. Establish that there is a problem between Harry and Albus that Harry just can't intrinsically figure out. But also, seeing as how Harry is also head of the magical law enforcement, which essentially means he's the head Auror, which essentially means he's a police detective, there could be a mystery, a detective case for them to solve. Make it a detective movie, a mystery. Harry, Ron, Hermione out in action once again, tracking down dark wizards, fighting in the action, all that stuff. Make it exciting, but also bring in the familial aspects of the story, Have Ron and Hermione have Hugo and Rose, and then have Harry and Ginny, have their children in the background, James, Albus, Lily, yeah. That in itself could be a really interesting and intriguing film, and then you can do films 2 and 3 being Cursed Child Part 1 and Part 2, and just fixing those stories so they make more logical and narrative sense, and they're not as corny and cheesy and overwritten, and also just fix the dialogue. Please, for the love of God, fix the dialogue, because that is one thing I will give credit to the actors for. They had to deal with some of the worst dialogue ever. Like, there's a whole sequence where Scorpius and Draco are, like, having this whole conversation about Draco's mother, and the whole time Draco's like, your mother, she was my light in the dark. Oh, she was the only one that saw the good in me. I was like, are we just going to talk in platitudes the whole time? Not to mention the fact that Harry is just an asshole. He is the worst. He literally tells Professor McGonagall, bear in mind, in the books, in Deathly Hallows, when Amicus Carrow spat at McGonagall, Harry used the Cruciatus curse on him because he was like, he spat at you. Harry has the audacity to tell Minerva McGonagall that she doesn't have children, so she doesn't understand the situation him and Ginny are going through when Scorpius and Albus disappear. No. Who wrote this? Did they even read Harry Potter? No. And so that is why I say, if they were to ever adapt Cursed Child into a 2-part film, a 3-part film series, they need to heavily revise the script, make it much more subtle, and make it just better in general, because I mean, you cannot put the stage play onto screen. It'd be awful. People would hate it. But anyway, I digress. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, although we know the story is not that great, as a stage production, it's really well done. It's really well told, really well crafted. The magic, the illusions, most of the performances are great. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Did you guys watch Cursed Child, by the way? Have you seen it yet in its theatrical run? Because I know it's really hard to get tickets, so I do count myself to be quite fortunate to have seen it. But have you not? Are you planning on seeing it? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on social media, all that good stuff. And until we meet again, see you guys next time.